Did the Chicago Police Department rush to judgment, or was the Jason Austin incident just a mistake any police department could have made? First, our prayers and thoughts go out to the Soto and Romberg families. We must all agree that this was truly a tragedy that doesn't sit well with all parties involved. Jason Austin walks free today, which means the real offender is still at large. Jody Weiss, Chicago Police, the Windy City's finest, have some explaining to do, but by the start of our show today, chose not to join us on Garrard McClendon Live. Welcome to Garrard McClendon Live. Jason Austin is a free man. Originally charged with second-degree murder and robbery of Chicago police officer Robert Soto and Catherine Romberg, Austin can now begin a new life without bars. When Jason walked out, a mob of reporters were waiting, but he wasn't in a talking mood.
You can set up a mic stand, that way you can say a few words to us. Is that okay?
Jason, do you mind if we chat with you? Don't crowd him, you guys. Don't crowd him. Give him space. Just give him space.
Jason, your family doesn't think you're getting there before.
Joining us now from the Tribune Tower is Austin's defense lawyer, David Weiner. Attorney Weiner, welcome to Garrard McClendon Live.
Well, thanks for having me.
You know, Attorney, I'm going to read a quote by you that was in the Chicago Tribune. It says, "I am elated because the kid didn't do it. There is no question in my mind. Jason said he didn't do it." Did you think that Jason's release would be the outcome today, Attorney?
One never knows. We've tried on a number of occasions over the past several years to give the state evidence before they indicted an offender. And this is actually the first time that this has ever happened, that they actually took our evidence, talked to their witnesses, and investigated the case. And so I was hopeful, but I didn't think necessarily it was going to happen.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. Where is Jason right now? We saw him released earlier. He pretty much was, was with no one. Where is he right now, Attorney?
His brother picked him up, and his brother drove him to another relative's house in suburban Cook County. And he is with his family and wanting to spend a quiet evening with them tonight.
How did you come about being the attorney? How did he become your client?
His brother called me, and his brother heard of me through other clients that I've represented. And eventually I became his lawyer. And when I did become his lawyer, Garrard, almost immediately the lawyer for the auto body shop in which his car was being serviced called me and said to me that the car that the state had made the centerpiece of their case was actually not available to Jason at the time of the shooting or the next day. And so the first thing our investigators did was to go to the auto body shop to get interviews and affidavits from the owner and his employee.
Yeah.
And then we developed some alibi witnesses, and we brought all of the witnesses in to Luann Snow and Bob Heilengetter, who were the state's attorneys who were in charge of investigating this case. And they're good people. They're honest, they're professional, and they did a great job of examining the evidence. And the only conversation I had with them, Garrard, was that they both told me a couple of weeks ago that if they thought that they could not prove the case, they wouldn't go forward with it. And Bob Heilengetter actually told me that he did agree with me that the car that the police had confiscated and were examining for gunshot residue was actually in the shop at the time, and that sort of defeated their case.
Absolutely. Now, it seems that you've been very transparent throughout this whole ordeal. You've been upfront. Your client has been upfront. I'm reading another quote here. Devine and we say they made a joint statement saying challenges with witness statements concluded that they would no longer be able to sustain their burden of truth. I mean, they pretty much said, you know what, we just have to give this up.
I think what happened, Garrard, is not only did we bring in alibi witnesses, but there were 3 or 4 witnesses who the police took statements from who said that Jason was at the scene in the car, which was of course not available to him. And they put those witnesses in front of the grand jury, and the witnesses changed their testimony. With that and with the witnesses that we provided them, I think that they just couldn't go forward.
Yeah, you know, attorney, the family has been extremely adamant about Jason Austin being innocent here, being not guilty. And, you know, especially his aunt and his mom and other members, you know, and you see this pretty much all the time. You know, a person says, oh, you know, my baby's innocent. My baby didn't do anything. You know, my baby was down south at the time. But I'm telling you, Sharon White, the aunt, was, I mean, since day one, she was like, Jason did not do it. And she became very, very convincing. Do you think this helped as well?
I'll tell you what I think helped. My associate on the case, Jack Wilk, is a former prosecutor who prosecuted 70 or 80 murders. And he has visited Jason on a number of occasions. And we do a great number of murders in my office. And Jack came to me and said, Dave, I am absolutely convinced that Jason did not commit this murder. And so we brought our investigators out, and with the help of the family, we rounded up people to show that Jason wasn't anywhere near the area of the shooting.
Yeah. Attorney, please stay with us. Still to come on today's show, your phone calls on Jason's release and the tragedy of Soto and Romberg. Call me.
Okay, I feel very relieved and happy, you know, and I want to appreciate and thank everybody for believing in him and standing by him. And I just want to say how sorry I am to the other families that did lose someone, but thank God it's not my son. He's not a cop killer. I just want everybody to know that I love him very much, and I know he wouldn't have done nothing like this. His heart is not like that. That's all I have to say.
Wow, that's Jason Austin's mother. You know, we're discussing the tragedy of Robert Soto and Catherine Romberg, both slain last month as they sat in Soto's SUV outside her home in the 3000 block of West Franklin Boulevard. Meanwhile, Jason Austin walks free today, no longer a suspect, maybe. 630-575-TALK is the number. Garrard McClendon Live is taking your phone calls. I do want to look at another clip, though, of the aunt of Jason Austin, that being Sharon White.
I believe he's going to do the right thing. He knows. He knows. The area, he now knows that even though those are his friends and they all grew up like brothers and sisters together, he knows that he can't be there because they're going to pick. They didn't get the right person, so for a reason they picked. And they picked too quick, and it didn't turn out like they wanted it to. Now that God has shined a light on him, he's going to step forward in his life, and he's going to become a new man, and he's not going to go back.
From Tribune Tower, we have attorney David Weiner, the attorney of Jason Austin. Attorney, the family has a tight bond. Jason Austin has been in trouble before.
Yes.
Do you think the tight bond of this family can keep Jason out of trouble?
Well, I think Jason has to leave the area surrounding where this killing took place, Gerard, because the police, I don't believe, agreed with the decision of the state's attorney to dismiss these charges. And these homicide detectives are honorable guys, and they believe they got the right guy. And I think that the bond of the family and hopefully Jason moving to a different location will help him put his life back together. His two convictions, one was a drug conviction, and one was what's called an aggravated battery. It had nothing to do with a weapon. And so I think that moving away and having a tight family, obviously, are going to both help Jason hopefully put his life together again.
Most definitely. And, you know, before we go to the phones, I do want to commend you on your respect for the Chicago Police Department. I've seen other attorneys, defense attorneys, that rip police departments, but you have been very respectful, and I think the Chicago Police Department should recognize that. I'm going to the phones, attorney. I'm talking with Star. Star, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment?
Hi, Gerard. I am so happy that Jason was able to get out of jail instead of spending 25, 30 years before they actually find that he wasn't the killer. Most young men, they have convictions on their background, and I think Jason should leave the area because from now on until this point, they're going to harass him until they find the right person. So he needs to move on with life, start all over again, and just be a happy person. Make your family happy. They put their lives out there. They went and got you an attorney, and be thankful for what they've done for you at this point.
Wow, Star, that's a great phone call. Thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. You know, something I was thinking about earlier today in the newsroom was how many times when people are released from jail or prison, they get what is called in the community caught up, which means that the minute you get out, you hook up with the same peer group and you get into the same nefarious activity. You're suggesting this, I think, attorney, is a very good suggestion. Hold tight, attorney. I'm going to some more phones. I'm going to Marie. Marie, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment?
Hi, yes, my comment is that the Chicago Police Department definitely rushed to judgment because it was one of their own, and that's the reason for the strained relationship and distrust between the black community and Chicago Police Department.
Wow, Marie, thank you so much for that call. You know, callers aren't, holding their tongue tonight. They're saying exactly what they feel. Do you think it was a rush to judgment? That's the thing I'm trying to figure out here, attorney. I'm looking at Jason Austin and how he became a suspect. I mean, was this just hearsay? I'm inclined to tell everyone in the Garrard McClendon Live audience tonight, attorney, that if you have a maroon Buick Regal, beware. I mean, what happened here, attorney?
Well, I believe that the evidence will show that the young woman was shot first. And then the police officer was shot. Prior to his death, he described 3 offenders in a maroon car. And the defendant was known to have lived in the area, known to have owned a maroon car. He was picked up 2 days after the shooting took place. And so I don't consider this a rush to judgment. I think that the police did good work, but made a mistake. But I don't think they rushed to judgment only because if in fact they're telling the truth, and I believe that they are, that the Chicago police officer before his death described, generically, but described 3 people in a maroon car.
Right.
And Jason was known to the police in the area.
Right.
I don't think you can categorize it as that. These are great police officers. And I think that what they did was follow leads and make an arrest. And fortunately, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office undid that arrest.
Absolutely. And hey, that's what the justice system is for. I'm going back to the phones. Mario, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment, Mario?
Hi, I want to know.
Talk to me.
I want to know where was he at the time of the shooting? Where was he at the time of the shooting? And I also want to know why the 2 witnesses that supposedly the police had against him, why did they choose him as a suspect? They're saying that the police coerced them into saying that he was the man. With the recent problems the police department has had in national highlights, there's no way that I think that they would try to coerce 2 people into saying something that's not true.
Okay.
I mean, it would just bring more problems for the department.
Mario, that's a great point. Thanks for calling Garrard McClendon Live. I'm going to see if the attorney wants to address that. Attorney, it's a good point. I mean, yes, the car was in the shop, and that became a point that we can prove. But did the witnesses flip-flop, and what were the whereabouts of Jason Austin?
Let me talk about the witnesses first. If you and I and a third person were driving somewhere and you knew that I, as the driver, had a weapon, and I got out of a car in which you were a passenger, and I shot and killed somebody, you would have been arrested as being accountable for my actions.
Right.
I've done, unfortunately or fortunately, over 300 murder juries over the last 40 years. And this is the first time I have ever seen 2 witnesses who allegedly were in the car, which was not available to the defendant, released after giving statements to the police. When the caller said, they said that the witnesses were coerced. I didn't say they were coerced. I don't know why the witnesses said that to begin with. Where was he? He was about 8 to 10 blocks away in a light green car. He was at a corner with about 7 or 8 people. 6 of them we brought in to have private meetings with the state's attorneys. He was nowhere near the shooting, and his car was in a body shop, and it was impossible for him to have been in the car in which the two witnesses said he was in. I mean, the witnesses said he was in his maroon car, when in fact that maroon car was in a body shop.
So attorney, those 6 people that were with him had consistent statements?
They did, and they were brought in to speak to Luann Snow and to Bob Heilengetter, who are supervisors in the state's attorney's office. They were allowed to speak to them for hours at a time. Their statements remained consistent, and I think it was based on that and the fact that the car was unavailable that the state's attorney's office decided to not prosecute.
Wow, Attorney David Weiner is with us on Garrard McClendon Live tonight. We appreciate you. Stay tight with us.
Okay.
Stay right there. If Jason Austin didn't do it, then who did? Chicago police detectives have their work cut out. Faulty fact-finding from police or...
My concerns for him, when he come out and a light has been shined on him, he's going to be a totally different man. And no, he's not going to be over there in that area because he got some blessings. He got a newborn baby that's 6 months. So, and I know he's going home to that baby.
Welcome back to the show. Jason Austin is free, but the offender of this heinous crime hasn't been brought to justice. Our prayers are with the families of police officer Robert Soto and Catherine Romberg. We're taking your calls at 630-575-TALK. What do you speculate? I do also want to make it clear that there were invitations to come to Garrard McClendon Live. We extended invitations to the Soto, the Romberg, and families and the Chicago Police Department, and we did not get a response, or we received a negative response from those entities. I'm going back to the phones, attorney. Let's go with Denise. Denise, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment?
Hi. I'm calling because I've been following this case from the very beginning, and it amazes. First of all, thank you, attorney, for doing your job, because here would have been another child, black man, that would have been railroaded. Sometimes when the police department have one of their own hurt, they try to reach out and get the first person they think or as a suspect. What happened here, if anybody followed this paper, why was the officer and this woman sitting in a car at 3 o'clock in the morning? Why did the newspapers say a one-liner, oh, they were not having a relationship? Because he was married? I think, personally, they need to look at home.
Don't go there, Denise. Don't go there, Denise. Denise, don't go there. That's speculation, Denise.
I'm sorry.
Don't go there.
That's how I feel. And they reach down and they get this young man, and then they say, well, why did his witnesses say that he was there when he wasn't? Because we all have seen how many black men have been released from prison for 20 years, and whoops, we made a mistake because of DNA. Come on, you guys. Ray Charles can see through this.
Okay, but Denise,
they need to check home.
Okay, hold tight, Denise, but you do have some sensitivity for the Soto and Romberg families.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
One killing is one killing too much. Absolutely. But to go and reach back and get a man because he was supposedly driving a maroon car, and to my understanding, when the cameras caught, the camera said it was a totally together different car and a different color of car.
Yeah. Denise, thanks for the call. We appreciate you. We're going to go to one more call quickly. Al, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. Make it quick, my friend.
Yes, I was just wanting to say thanks to the actual lawyer presiding over this case. You know, he actually saved another black man from getting shot in his back 50 times. It's actually a great thing to the black community. We need more lawyers like him at our disposal. Now, I just have a quick question for the lawyer. Is there extra money involved for a case being settled early, or what? Because if there's not, then there's no reason for everybody to be rushing to settle cases all over the country.
Thanks for the call, Al. Quickly, attorney.
Well, there's no extra money that I get for settling a case early. If in fact he had been indicted and they had voted to make this a capital case, I would have gotten a great deal more money. My job isn't to make a lot of money. It's to make sure that we can stop an innocent man from being prosecuted and sitting for 2 or 2.5 years in jail awaiting trial.
Yes. Jason Austin walks today. Your thoughts on Garrard McClendon Live? Keep it right there. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Garrard McClendon Live. Man, we're talking about the Jason Austin case. He's been released from jail today. I'm going to Sakina. Last phone call. Sakina, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live.
Hi, yes. I would just like to say that the Chicago Police Department was wrong, and they owe him an apology.
Thank you so much, Sakina. I appreciate you watching and calling Garrard Mcclendon Live. Attorney, you know, it's been a busy day for you today. Give me some final statements. This is, you know, I think I'm relieved that the young man was released, but I'm still saddened by, you know, the tragedy that happened to the Romberg and the Soto family. Final thoughts, attorney.
Well, it's an enormous tragedy when two people get murdered. Clearly they were murdered. Clearly, in my mind, in my associates' mind, in my investigators' minds, Jason Austin didn't commit this murder. I hope that the police continue their investigation and find whoever did this.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you having me on, Gerard.
I appreciate you, Attorney David Weiner, defending Jason Austin. I'm saddened today by the tragedy and emptiness that both families must feel, the Sotos and the Rombergs. My hopes are that the Chicago Police Department find the criminal who did this. Jason walks, but we must encourage someone to snitch on the perpetrators. Closure comes when criminals are brought to justice. Thanks for watching Garrard McClendon Live. Keep your head up and always be encouraged. Ask or ask, Donda's rules, suit shoes. McClendonReport.com.